Let's give a warm welcome for our next phenomenal speaker, Tracy.
Well, let's give it up for Carissa also. She is my executive coach as well, so I'm just so honored to be part of the Alpha Queen Collective. Yeah! So I'm excited to share with you today something that's very near and dear to my heart also, that is parallel to what Carissa just talked about. So today I want to share with you all how to implement change effectively. So I am going to talk about rapid resilience, and that is recognize, aspire, proficient, implement, and demonstrate. So change management really is a structured approach to how people can effectively implement change, and really gives a way for folks to adapt and have rapid resilience. So when I talk about rapid resilience, I want to share a story with you. I actually was a college dropout. I was working in healthcare and found myself laying at the bottom of about 20 stairs. Ended up with a broken scapula, broken jaw, 13 stitches in my head. And I walked into my daughter's bedroom. She was huddled in her bed with her 4 siblings. And she looked up at me and she said, "Mom, it's time for a change." The most profound thing is that I work for an international healthcare company, and I'm a director of change management and implementation strategy for large transformational clinical initiatives. But what I didn't do is implement the change in my personal life. So at that point, I had to really make a decision. I had to recognize what needed to change and why. So I started making some moves, and my mom had taken me to the courthouse one day. I went to file for divorce. It was a Friday. And that afternoon, I begged her, "Mom, please don't have him served today. Can we please wait until Monday?" So she said, "Okay, but Monday, he's gonna be served." So that night, I went to bed. I woke up to go to the restroom Saturday morning about 3 a.m., and I think he had just gotten home too, so that woke me up. There was a call from my cousin. I listened to the voicemail. She said, "Tracy, you need to call me. There's been a tragedy in the family." So I called her, and she said, "Michael strangled Michelle to death." My baby cousin, I had no idea that she was in the same situation that I was in. She didn't know that I was also in the same situation. Leslie talked yesterday about being able to protect ourselves for our kids. And so if you remember, I said that I understood, I recognized that I had awareness to what I needed to change and why I needed to change. But I didn't have the desire or aspiration to actually take action. I didn't completely understand what was in it for me until my cousin was murdered at the hands of her husband. And it was the very moment that my kids and her kids were sitting. She had four daughters. I had 3 daughters and 1 son. They were all sitting on the couch, hugging and crying. And at that moment, I knew that was what was in it for me. What was in it for me was that my kids would never have to grow up without a mom. And so the first 2 steps in rapid resilience, this model is adapted after ADKAR ProSci methodology. I use ADKAR professionally, but personally and with athletes, I use rapid resilience. And the first two steps, like I said, are recognize and then aspire. And so those were the two steps that I was going to highlight today, because as you can see in this valley of despair, that when we don't manage change effectively, when we don't have awareness and gain desire, then we can drop down into that valley and become a victim mentality, angry, self-doubt, indecisive. We want to try to manage change, whether it's personally or professionally, along the dotted line, because we all know that the straightest route from point A to point B is along the dotted line. And so this methodology helps folks transition, again, from point A to point B without dipping down into that line, whether it's a large organizational transformation or a personal transformation. There has to be a strategy behind each one of these steps, which I don't have time to go into today. There is a strategy to helping navigate change effectively. So I want to share that realizing the risk of not changing is greater than the risk of changing. Again, we've talked a lot about change, and so, like I mentioned, ADKAR is the ProSci methodology that is well-known, outcome-oriented, people-focused methodology for organizations that I use, and then the rapid resilience is the personal methodology that I use. So in an amount of time from 2014 to 2022, first of all, my kids and I also were homeless, living out of our car, staying in a two-bedroom place at my parents' house, and then also living back and forth, or staying at my daughter, who was a high schooler at the time, staying in her best friend's house. Then I went from making $42,000 a year in 2014 to making over 6 figures. But I didn't do that through not adapting. I had to rapidly adapt to change. I had to realize the what and why quickly. I had to figure out what was in it for me and make change. I had to understand what knowledge, or how did I need to train to be proficient to be able to make that transition. Then I had to remove any barriers. So what did I need to do to make this possible? I needed to have the ability to implement. And then I had to reinforce by demonstrating. I had to demonstrate my actions. And so I did that over and over, because change is the only constant thing that we face in life, is change. So then I'm happy to stand here in Harvard. I'm not a doctor, but I do have a bachelor's degree now. So went back to school. Purchased my first home as a single mom. Then in 2023, also faced some more adversity. And so my kids and I moved over to the other side of Denver, and I bought my second home right coming out of COVID. So that is a picture of me in my new office, sitting in my office in my house, happy as can be. Then in August of this year, I went to a retreat. I started coaching with Carissa and Alpha Queen Collective in the beginning of this year. In August, I went to a retreat and then really just figured out my purpose. At the time, I didn't know what my purpose was. I talked to Carissa. I knew that I wanted to explore my business opportunities, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. And then my daughter is there in the top right, and I put her up there because I've been able to work with athletes and help show them rapid resilience and the fact that they have to be able to adapt to change, whether it's a game day change, a coaching change, a philosophy change. And she's a senior in high school and has 3 D2 college opportunities to play softball, and she wants to be a pediatrician. And she was at a softball tryout this weekend, and she had to adapt when I said, honey, I have an opportunity to speak at Harvard, and so we're gonna have to figure this out with me not there with you. And so super excited for her, but also something that being able to manage change effectively is something we should pass on to our children as well. So I want to leave you with, it is not the strongest of species that survive, nor the most intelligent, but the most responsive to change, by Charles Darwin. Yeah.